My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and today I have with me the lovely Sophia Rose. So, have you ever had a single moment that changed for you forever? So, Sophia Rose is a full-time traveler and author who experienced a life-changing moment on an Egyptian beach. Her recently published book, Until Shiloh Comes, details a 6-year journey to faith following a single moment of surrender. Sophia was trained as a scientist, writes medical information for clinicians, and enjoys wielding her knitting needles and crochet hooks as often as possible. So a big welcome to the show, Sophia.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I got goosebumps already. So tell us, I think the biggest question after that introduction is what happened on this beach? This is already burning in my mind.
Oh my goodness. So I was at a place in my life where I thought I knew things, you know. I had been studying, really, I really did. I had lived a long time and I thought, wow, I've got some wisdom. And that wisdom was that really I can't trust anyone.
Mm.
Because pretty much in my life, people who said they loved me and wanted to help me or any of the above ended up hurting me, and sometimes quite badly.
Yeah.
And so I realized, oh, I need to really protect myself. And then I went on this, I had this moment where I decided I'm going to just really live my best life. My son had died by suicide, and that really devastated me. I was on this spiritual journey, and when that happened, I just shut down completely. And I thought, I'm just going to
hide from the
forget about spirituality, because what reward was that? You know, I mean, I just was very devastated, and I felt betrayed by the universe, truly. Like, wow. So I decided to do whatever it was that I felt to do. And one of the things I'd always wanted to do from when I was very young was live overseas. I wanted to travel, and I had never really done that. And I accepted a job in Egypt. Now, that job didn't work out, and I quit pretty quickly, and I moved to the Sinai Peninsula just to live and start my writing career again. You know, and one evening, I'm walking on the beach and I'm totally by myself. It's getting dark, and I had this extremely bizarre kind of experience where I was looking out at the water, and it just felt like I was on this little tiny island and surrounded completely by water, cut off from everything. And I was able to see myself from outside of myself, not in a physical way, like I wasn't floating out of my body or anything, but it was almost like I could see my consciousness from a different place inside myself. And I saw that I was totally lost, completely didn't know what I was doing. And moreover, I saw that everything that I had done in my life to recover from difficult moments and trauma and my son's death, all of it had been for nothing. It had been the wrong path. And I knew that I didn't know what next to do. It was this moment of like, wow, I got nothing. But what was really interesting was there was no negative feeling about it. It was just this beautiful, crystal clear clarity and truth. And that's, you know, looking back, I think, that's the hallmark of the divine, right? When you have this really difficult piece of information that you've been given, but it feels great, you know?
Yeah. And then at the same
So
time,
in
you're
that,
like, then now what?
exactly. So I'm standing there and I'm kind of like, well, I've got nothing. What do I do? And I felt it came up from my body and it like bypassed my brain and it came out my mouth and it was a prayer. And it was, please, I need a spiritual guide. And the moment I said it, I was like, wow, that's true. And then my mind went right in because I don't trust anybody because I'd had a lot of people trying to give me advice over my life and it was all bad, mostly bad. So I thought, wow, I don't trust anybody and I need a guide. Well, I'm really stuck. And I did what I always do when I'm in that situation and I just put it aside.
Yeah.
I just like, I can't think about that. There's nothing I can do. And I just walked on. And 3 days later, I went into this restaurant. Now, I had befriended this, he was actually a Saudi Arabian young man who had opened a restaurant in this small Bedouin village. And I was tutoring him in English and he was giving me free meals and it kind of really worked out. And I went into his restaurant and he ran up to me, Sophia, Sophia, I've met a Scottish healer and you just have to meet him. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want, I didn't say that to him. Like, I'm not interested. I've met many healers, been to many people who, and I just was not interested. But he was very persistent. And after about 10 days of him inviting me and me saying no, I felt embarrassed. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll meet with this guy. And it turns out he completely changed my life. Multiple things happened, but essentially, he sat down across from me and told me things about myself that I'd never told anybody and never even really acknowledged. And what he said was, because of all that you've been through, you have shut down, and I see it like a hood over your head. You don't trust anyone. And there was something about how he said it so non-judgmentally and how he saw it I never told him that, my difficulties in my childhood or the traumatic marriages. And I had never told him about my son's death. It was not something I talked about. He saw it though. And because somehow him seeing me, it like ripped this big bandage off of me pretending everything was okay. And I just cried for like 20 minutes straight. And he just sat there while I sobbed all of the trauma of my life out. Yeah. And then I got mad. Is that a weird thing? I said, wait a minute, wait. I felt like I knew something. I felt like, hey, I know I'm not supposed to trust people. And you're telling me that there's a problem here? So I said, it was a little bold of me, really. I don't know the guy. I said, everybody I've ever known who and trusted has betrayed me. So why should I trust anyone? And he said, oh, I'm not asking you to trust people. People are wounded and they act from their wounding. He said, I am asking you to trust God because God has never betrayed you. And I kind of sat there. I didn't want to say to this man who was clearly a man of God, a man of faith, that I didn't know that I believed in God. I wasn't sure about that. I believed in something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it felt truly like when I talked about the universe, that it was this kind of impersonal, benevolent place, but didn't know me personally or care for me personally. That's was a comfortable place for me to be. And he kind of was like asking me to move beyond that. And I was a little unwilling to say, I don't know about that. And he knew. I didn't say anything. And he said, if you ask God for a sign that he is near and he hears you, you will receive it. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
So the next day, I go out to the beach all by myself. Now, the beach there where I was a pretty secluded beach. There was this guy with a camel. And after he left, I went into the water up to my neck. And I just was like, okay, I knew I was going to ask for a sign, but I was really scared. Like, what if I don't get one? What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a little bit terrifying, and I finally said, "Okay." Shiloh said that if I asked for a sign, that you would give me one. So I'm asking, and I had just started to think to myself, I wonder what it would look like, or I wonder how long I have to wait. And I didn't even finish the thought when I saw something coming from the reef. Now, the reef off of the coast in the Gulf of Aqaba is absolutely gorgeous, but it's about, I don't know, 300 to 400 feet away from the shore. It's a good swim out there, and I see something coming from the reef, and it's like as straight as an arrow. I mean, it is coming fast, and it's a ripple in the water, and I have no idea what it is. But it stops right in front of my face, and it's an eel. And this
What?
eel, and yeah, it's a conger eel. So it's got this fin all the way down its back, and I could see this fin moving to try to keep it positioned in front of me because there's waves coming, right? And he's just staring at me. And we just stared at each other for like a minute. And I was like, okay, this is a sign. I've never been approached by an eel before, and never have been since.
Yeah.
So at that point, I decided to trust Shiloh, and I decided to trust that what he said was true.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of this incredible journey that I've been on for the last 7 years.
Yeah, and there's so much in that story, Sophia, like just surrendering. And then, and it's so funny, if you're meant to meet somebody, this is what I always say to people, if you're meant to meet somebody, you will be given somebody to keep pushing you in that direction, right? And I had this personally happen too, where people kept telling me I had to meet this certain person, and I actually had her number, and we were messaging each other, but we couldn't figure out why we were meant to meet. We just were like, okay, I don't know, like, everyone just keeps saying we're meant to meet. And then it was by the third person that I got this message back. Like, I was talking and she goes, oh yeah, I do this work with this person, and she's got a rife machine, and a rife machine's a frequency machine. I talk about it all the time. And I went, oh my goodness, that is why I'm meant to meet this person. I've been looking for someone who's been a rife practitioner for ages, like for months. But yeah, it was just like the universe was just like, you're meant to connect. You're meant to connect from so many different people, but we just couldn't figure out why till we got that last piece of the puzzle. And it was perfect timing that I got that information. So like you said, it's that surrender and asking for those signs as well. And I tell my clients, I tell people all the time to ask for signs. Like, what do you mean? That doesn't really work. It so does. Clearly, like you had the eel in your face. For me, like I ask for black cockatoos. So if it's a yes, show me a black cockatoo. And then I get really cheeky as well, and I'll go, I want to see 3 black cockatoos. And sure enough, it's a yes, I'll see 3 black cockatoos. So, it's if you're open and you're willing to ask and really believe and trust the answer will come, it will. You just have to be looking for the signs as well, because it's no good asking for a sign and then completely, it'd be like saying, oh, can you show me a sign, and then go sleep for 3 days? Well, that's not going to help, right? So you've got to be open to it too.
Right, right. This is something that I feel like I have had to learn, because I had the walls up so deeply that allowing them to drop for God and the universe and for signs, like you said, it's not easy, because it's so habitual to cut yourself off. So it's a daily practice.
Yeah, especially like you said, you'd almost, when you were saying, when he said he saw like a hood over you, for me too, I saw it was like the hood was like you just turning your back on everything and just, walking away like cloaked, like I don't even want your eyes on me, kind of thing. So yeah. And it's
Exactly.
just, yeah. And so then I'm assuming, did you then start working with Shiloh? What happened next?
We spent, actually, I don't want to say every day, but it seemed like every day for the next 2 months there in that small village in Egypt. Every evening we would talk, and he would talk about his sacred path, which is eye-opening. When you hear about someone's sacred path, you're just like, oh my gosh, wow, this is how it can be. it's magical and it's painful and it's growth and it's all these things. And then he talked a lot about um, how to have a relationship with God and what that really looks like, what faith really looks like. Because the only faith that I knew, and I'm not denigrating this in any way, I was raised in a very strict religious home.
Mm.
And I kind of, when I came out of that, I rejected religion because of there was a lot of suppression involved. And also I was, molested as a child for several years. And somehow the environment that I was in did not allow me to speak about that, to even know how to know that someone cared that that was happening. And I rejected all of that and threw the baby out with the bathwater, which is God, So it took me all this whole long arc to come back and go, okay, you can have a relationship with God without being a religious person. And
And I really like that point, Sophia, because a lot of times people not talk about God, and even when I'm sharing with the group, I'll say, okay, I'm going to use a term and you can be whatever works for you. Slot in the word here that works. Is it God, universe, divine, creator, all that is, spark, whatever bigger being you believe in, put that word in. And it's so important that we put that caveat on things because, like you said, religion can taint the word God. Some people don't like the divine because it feels too female-like, especially if they've been brought up with that patriarchal image of God being a male. There's so many things that are so triggering. And, even when I was writing my book and trying to describe that, I actually just used the universe because I found that that was all-encompassing of all that kind of thing in it itself. But again, it's whatever resonates with you. And for us, before we started recording, I'll happily talk about God with you because I know that resonates with you. So, I like that you brought up that point with religion. We're so conditioned. This is how religion looks like. There's so much fear. There's so much suffering. There's so many conditions put in place. When in the end, I found when you learn about each religion, there's actually truth in all of it. It's just been so distorted and so used as a mass. Well, for my belief, it's actually being used to control people. So, it's this, if you don't do the right thing, you're going to hell. And you're right, that was the Catholic upbringing, or you'll end up in purgatory. And I'm like, well, I work with spirits in purgatory. It's not what you're saying it is. They're just kind of stuck in this non-limbo time. And as you go through your spiritual journey, you unpack all this and go, oh, yeah, no. So, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so I feel like what he did was just kind of guide me to see things in a new way. And really, I didn't realize it at the time, but he has a very healing presence. So it's like that him holding that space for me allowed me to grow in ways that I didn't even know I needed, and there were multiple times where he triggered massive healings in me that were extremely painful, but that's how it works. I mean, the pain is the sign that it's healing is happening. And so to accept that and to embrace it was something I had to learn to do, in that process. So, about 3 years. I left Egypt about 2 months after I met Shiloh, and that's when I began to travel as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it meant that I had to give everything up because you can't travel with very heavy luggage, and I had to be able to carry everything that I owned in my hands, which meant I had to give away a lot of things. And I had already downsized. I'd already sold my home and everything.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting on the beach. Again, a lot happens on the beach. I sat there and I just cried and cried and cried. And it wasn't sadness. It was more like I knew that I was not going back to a regular life again. And I was just saying goodbye to that along with all my stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because it's like when we talk about grieving, a lot of people just think of grieving like the loss of a loved one, like, but at the same time, it can be grieving, like you said, changing a lifestyle. It can be grieving a life that you thought you would lead, but no longer going to lead it. For me, I've been through grieving a dream and getting to that dream and realizing, actually, no, this isn't the dream I want. I need to pivot again because, my path has changed. And by allowing yourself to grieve, and even what you were saying when you met Shiloh and you started crying and got anger, straight away I just heard grief, because it almost was like you were going through the stages of grief, really, before you even got to the pain and everything else. So, and I love that you keep coming back to the beach, because there's something about the water, right, that it's always so cleansing. Well, for me, I find the water is so cleansing at a beach. It's just the energy of the waves taking things away and bringing new things in and taking things away that, really resonates with my soul. And I get a lot of epiphanies when I go near the water too.
I will tell you that I must absolutely 100% agree. It's almost like I cannot be anywhere in the world now unless it's near some type of flowing water, because otherwise I feel stagnant or things don't happen. But some really spectacular things have happened. Right now, I'm on a boat, actually.
It's funny. I'm laughing for people who are listening if I ever put some clips up, but you've got like a little captain's wheel behind your head. That's why I'm laughing that you're on a boat. I'm just like, oh, there you go. That explains that.
That explains the appearance of the surroundings, yes. Several, I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago, this is a place I come back to somewhat often, this particular boat. Maybe once or twice a year I'll come back. And 2 or 3 years ago, Shiloh had called me and we were talking, and he sometimes when he talks, it's like, oh my gosh, he reveals these amazing things about, how God works in the universe. And it's so amazing that and I could feel my vibration, my frequency was so, it's hard to describe, but you probably know exactly what I mean. Mm-hmm. And I went to bed that night with that beautiful peace and contentment of knowing that, I don't have to be in charge of anything, because the universe knows exactly what's happening and it's got it, And when I woke up the next morning, I felt that it carried me all through the night, that beautiful feeling of peace and contentment. And my consciousness spontaneously expanded. And I was outside the boat at the same time I was inside the boat. And I could see and feel and experience the consciousness of the water. And the water had this ancient feel to it, and it knew what it was. And then the air, I could feel how the air interacted with the water, and they were not the same, but interlinked in such a beautiful, and it was so incredible to me to feel the consciousness of the air in this ancient wisdom that it held. And there's a tree outside the boat that I can't obviously see when I'm in the boat, but I saw that tree and I saw the water and the air inside that tree. And it was just seeing life for what it really is. And the other part to it that was so incredible was that I could see time as an overlay. And I had somehow slipped in between the segments of time that are not real; they're kind of fake. And in that in between time, I saw this truth, and then I had a thought, and that's what pulled me out of the truth. And so I was like, and thought was, this is what Shiloh knows. That was my thought. And as soon as I tried to describe it and say what I thought about it,
Words.
it was gone. And that taught me a very big lesson about how our mind interferes with truth.
Yeah. And I love that you could just see the interaction of the elements and the elementals coming to play. And it's so true about the ancient wisdom of water. And I still love, if anyone's watched the Frozen movie, I think it's the second one, with where they actually go into this enchanted forest, and there's so much truth hidden in the elements there. But Olaf is walking on and goes, "Water has memories," you know. So, and it's so true. Like it's when the more you learn about what water is, it's actually a living organism within itself. It has this really cool interactions. There's so much science around it now, but you know, and seeing that and having that affinity with water and how you feel pulled and connected with it, and just to be free of time, because time is a human construct. It's not a universal one, right?
Yeah. So, yeah.
So then how did the book come about? That's the next part, right?
Oh, wow. So I was living in the country of Georgia, which is north of Turkey on the Black Sea.
Yeah.
And I was there for probably about 7 or 8 months. And I had this, I'm just trying to look at the time. I had this experience where I was walking around the old town of Batumi, which is a beautiful resort in Georgia on the Black Sea. And I went into a bookstore, which is really weird because I can't buy books. I can't. I have a small suitcase, and there is no way I'm carrying a book around, you know.
Yeah.
But I felt compelled to go in. It's one of those moments when you just know. I knew I had to go in, and sure enough, I walk right over to this table, and there's only one table that has English books because people speak either Russian or Georgian there, and that's it. And so there's only like 8 books in English. And right in the middle is this stack of books, and one is Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And it seemed to glow. It was like glowing. And I was like, oh, yeah, I have to buy that book, but I've already read the book.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know why I'm buying this book, but I am. And it turns out that it was a new edition, and he had put a new chapter on the end. And I went back to my apartment. Yeah, there's a new ending, and it is incredible. So as I read it, I started crying, and I didn't stop crying. It only took half hour to read it. It's a very short book. And at the end of it, I was like, this is a message to me, and I am supposed to write the story. Because the story of Jonathan Livingston Seagull is the story of someone coming back here and helping people. And in my opinion, Shiloh is Bodhisattva. If that's terminology okay to use, that's the terminology I think of in my head, is he is a master who has come here to help humanity. And I am supposed to somehow write about him. And I didn't want to say this out loud because it just sounded so like,
Woo.
like what? Yeah, thanks. So, I can't remember exactly. Somehow, what happened was I began to have this wind, and a wind came through me, through my body. And it's not really a wind, but it was like this energy that was so powerful that I thought I'm either going to fall down or I'm going to be, I wouldn't say float because that's too mild of a term, be thrust up into the air dangerously, or I might turn inside out. It was very frightening what was happening, this thing to me. And with it came the confirmation, yes, you are to write this book about what Shiloh has done for you. And I was like, okay. And I think it was then that he called. Like, it was weird. Like, he never calls me.
Always.
Yeah. Like, and so all of a sudden the phone rings and it's him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to tell him. And I'm kind of shy to tell him this. Like, who am I to be writing a book about this guy? You know, I don't know. So I finally just came out with it, and he goes, oh yeah. And he goes, and that feeling you're feeling, that's your soul saying yes. And I was like, okay, all right. So I'm going to write this book. And that's how I started to write the book. And a year later, I'm still writing it. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know, when am I done? How do you know? It's not like my journey is over. My journey continues, right?
Yeah.
I was on the beach.
I see a
I
theme
was on the
here.
beach. What was that?
I see a theme here.
Yes. I had just finished this very intense yoga class that had pushed my body beyond what I thought it was capable of. And there's a beautiful feeling that happens in your body when you realize, wow, and it's just, I was so
Powerful.
centered and grounded. And I was walking on the beach for a full half hour and nobody was there because it was raining. So there's lots of water all around. And I just spontaneously, probably for 20 minutes, was just give spontaneous prayers of thanks and gratitude because I just felt so amazing in that moment. And then I did something I don't normally do. I said, God, do you have anything you want to say to me? Normally I'm asking or thanking, or I'm not, doing so good with the listening. And I waited for a couple of minutes and nothing happened. I was like, that's fine. As I turned, as soon as I dropped the expectation that there might be something, it came in, right? You know how that is.
Yeah.
So I turned, and before my foot could even fall down, I heard the words. And the words were, I have chosen Shiloh. You are not to question him. And I was like, it sounds like a reprimand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Question him. It wasn't. I mean, I guess it was, but it didn't feel like that. It felt like the door to the kingdom of heaven opened, and on me came this energy that was so incredible that it reminded me of what people say when they've had near-death experiences. And they talk about the being of light that they meet, and it's not really what they see, but it's the feeling of unconditional love. And then they start crying, and there's no words that's exact. There are no words to describe that feeling. It just doesn't exist here.
That's right.
And so,
like,
so you're
yeah,
you're reeling in this amazing unconditional love, and it's just that there's this great piece of information, and I'm like, okay. And I knew in that moment that's one of the things that I was supposed to put into the book.
Yeah.
That I have chosen shame.
So and I love to, like, before we started recording, we were sharing how we were both write the same way with our books. So it's like you get a channel through. So it's like it's not even you writing it. It's just purely your connection with God. And so I say I have a spirit writer, right? So and he just comes in and the story comes out, and it's like you can't control it. It's got to go through you. You're just holding a space. You're just essentially typing on the keyboard, right? And just having all the information come through, and it gets organized so beautifully. Like even today I was editing my book and I was like, oh, how am I going to write about that? And then I just heard use ChatGPT, and I'm like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, trust us. So that, and I get this really clear idea. And then as soon as I walked out the door to go to my next thing, I got a clear thing of how I was going to write it. But it needed to have like that structure to almost embed in there and just give you that kind of understanding of how they want it to present. Because sometimes, like you said, things get lost in translation, especially when you're feeling like this energy and your words don't always, like you said, the human language cannot cover or explain that euphoric feeling that you have when you are truly connected with God.
Yeah, it's impossible because I feel like it's opening to another realm, and that's not the reality here, and so the mind can't really grasp it. Yeah.
And it's just this oneness and connectedness, and it's timeless as well. Like sometimes I'll feel like I'm gone for hours and I'll come back and it'll be 5 minutes. It's just like, oh, okay, a lot happened in that time I was, up there, and I'm back here now. So I really love how that evolved for you, Sophia, and how you, that's just such an amazing journey, and how you got there to share this wisdom now in this book. So tell us what the book's called and how can people find it?
Oh, it's God named the book, of course, and He named it Until Shiloh Comes. And there is a website called untilshilohcomes.com.
Perfect.
And but the book is available on Amazon. So
Beautiful.
yeah, all over the world.
Perfect. And as everyone that comes on the show, I often ask them, well, no, I ask everybody, I'm saying often, I ask everybody if they could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
Well, I did think about this because there's so many things that need healing and changing in the world, but I think if everyone truly knew who they were,
Yeah.
really, the entire world would change over in an instant.
Yeah. Agreed. It seems to be a theme today because I've interviewed a few people today and they all say very similar things about if you know who you are, if you know yourself, and coming back to that true essence of humanity, even, and that remembering that God created us and we are all like an image of God. Why are we fighting? It comes to
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That we're all the same essentially.
Yeah.
And not in a metaphorical way, but in a literal way.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey, Sophia. This has been a wild ride and I absolutely loved it. And I know everyone who's probably listened to this has just gone, wow, do we need to go to the beach as well? Maybe.
Everybody to the beach.
Everyone to the beach. Well, thank you again. And yeah, thank you too for being here and holding space as well with me.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.